Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Monday, March 19th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen precipitation move across all areas of the Great Basin, including southern areas that have been very dry over the last several months. This precipitation in the far south and over parts of western and northern Nevada up into Idaho was near to above normal for the 2-week period. Elsewhere, generally precipitation was near to below normal. Looking at the snowfall over the last 72 hours, you can see the image on the left shows the significant snowfall that has occurred into the Sierra, into western and parts of northern Nevada, along with the higher terrain of Utah and the central Idaho mountains. Looking at the snow depth, the greatest snow depth still continues to be over central Idaho into Wyoming, where snowpack is near normal. However, with the storms that have moved through the southern half of the Great Basin, snowpack has increased to between 60 and 70% of normal over the Sierra and across Nevada and into Utah. The satellite loop from Monday morning shows this area of low pressure off the Pacific Northwest, and this will move eastward, bringing showers today to parts of Idaho and Wyoming, with continued drier conditions further south. However, we'll see a deeper, low pressure system off the west coast move inland towards the middle to end of the week, bringing more significant precipitation to the Great Basin. Now looking at the weather pattern for later today, again you can see that weak area of low pressure off the northwest coast, producing the clouds and showers over the northern third of the Great Basin, potentially dipping down into far northern Utah, with drier conditions over the rest of the area. Dispersion will remain quite poor over Nevada into Utah, just due to lighter winds with this main system well offshore. Now looking at the transport winds, very light winds today expected across much of the Great Basin, and only moderate winds up across parts of Wyoming and Idaho. Mixing heights will remain relatively high over the Arizona Strip into southern Nevada and southern and eastern Utah, and lower as you move north and west. As we move into Tuesday, we see this main area of low pressure starting to move eastward off the west coast, and this may push some showers up into parts of Nevada, including the far southern areas, as we move later in the day on Tuesday. However, winds will still remain fairly light, therefore poor dispersion is expected in most areas. Looking at the transport winds, the image on the left, winds will be a little bit stronger on Tuesday than we'll see today, however still relatively light to moderate across the basin. Mixing heights will be decreasing, but still remain in the moderate to high range over southern and eastern areas, and lower as you move further north and west across Nevada and Idaho. As we move into Wednesday, this trough now moves further eastward just off the west coast, and this will start to push more significant precipitation, especially into the Sierra, and across parts of the western half of the Great Basin. Winds will also be increasing more significantly on Wednesday, therefore we'll see good dispersion over much of the Great Basin, with the exception of over parts of central Idaho where dispersion will remain poor. Looking at the transport winds, you can see this increase in winds. Most gusts on Wednesday will generally reach the 40 to 50 mile per hour range at times, especially in the higher terrain and on the far western side of the basin, and mixing heights will be increasing. Looking at the forecast clearing index for Utah over the next few days, generally low clearing indices with the exception of the high elevations both today and Tuesday. Tuesday you can start to see clearing indices start to rise in the west and north as that main system off the west coast approaches, with a more significant increase on Wednesday. The overall forecast amount of precipitation, mainly for the later in Tuesday through Wednesday time period, shows that significant increase in precipitation once again as that next storm system moves in off the west coast, bringing significant rain and snowfall to parts of Nevada and the High Sierra. Snow levels with these first few systems will remain relatively high until we get closer to later in Wednesday and Thursday, and especially towards Friday, where they will start dropping. As we move towards Thursday, that main trough of low pressure moves east onshore California, and this will push precipitation across all areas of the Great Basin, along with keeping winds relatively gusty. Therefore, good dispersion is expected, but we will see rain and snow affecting generally all areas of the Great Basin, including the far south. As we move into Friday, most of the precipitation moves over eastern and northern areas, with generally drier conditions moving into the Arizona Strip, southern and western Nevada. Still good dispersion as winds will remain relatively breezy with that low just off the northwest coast. As we move into Saturday, that trough now starts to move eastward across the Great Basin, still keeping good dispersion and any precipitation focused in the north as we move into the weekend. By Sunday into early next week, we will see drier conditions reemerge for at least a brief period time across the Great Basin, with still good dispersion on Sunday before we see conditions start to deteriorate at the beginning of next week. Significant amounts of precipitation are still on tap for the Thursday through Saturday time period as that storm moves through the Great Basin, with the highest storm totals of precipitation in the High Sierra and also the higher elevations of eastern Nevada up into northern Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming. Looking at the 8 to 14-day outlook, we'll see below normal temperatures across the basin as these areas of low pressure continue to track eastward across the west, and also below normal precipitation as we get later in the period in March towards the 1st of April. That concludes our briefing for today. Check back on Wednesday for the latest updates.